Web 2 is your regular internet. You can read, you can write, you can interact, but you do not have any sort of ownership. In Web 3, we're utilizing blockchain to essentially give users ownership of their data and of their assets back. We're very, very far away from Web 3 reaching mass adoption, mainly because the user experience is far from exemplary still.
Welcome to the Success Revenue Podcast, where AI meets leadership and real business impact, from the Middle East to the world. This is the show for leaders navigating how AI is unlocking human impact and reshaping how businesses grow.
We are your host, Ivy Ferrero, executive leader and speaker, and Haider Al-Saad, CEO of Nebulous, where businesses build and deploy AI agents. Join us for another conversation on this episode. Let's dive in.
All right, guys, I am so excited for this season of the podcast. Today's guest is Maryna Barysheva, an award-winning Web3 marketing executive and the CEO of LKI Consulting, a veteran crypto marketing firm scaling blockchain and tech companies since 2016. She has led go-to-marketing and growth for major Web3 players, including Bybit, KuCoin, and Input Output, the Cardano Group, among others. Before Web3, Marina helped scale one of the six largest SaaS startups from seed to 100 million valuation, delivering solutions for NATO, the US Department of State, Google, and MasterCard. Today, Marina bridges institutional and retail adoption in Web3 and is a sought-after international speaker on growth, token strategy, and market adoption. I'm so excited to dive into her perspective on where Web3 is actually heading and what growth really looks like in 2026. Marina, you have had many lives, as we can see from the introduction of the podcast. So I would love just to go ahead and dive into your story. Where are you based out of? And how did you ended up having such a cool story?
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to join the podcast today. The story is pretty non-standard as for a crypto executive, I'd say. I spend the majority of my time on an airplane. Actually, I do get to travel the world. The base is in Lithuania, but I'm also a lot in the UAE. And of course, all over the globe for the crypto conferences, for meeting our partners and clients. I'm extremely privileged. I'd say be completely decentralized in that sense. I didn't go into crypto as a trader. I was actually not holding Bitcoin, not holding Ethereum. I was not sitting in a hoodie in a basement being a degen. I was growing a tech business, and my background is in B2B marketing. But when I was at the intersection of institutional and corporate, I saw a huge opportunity to enter more emerging industries, fintech, payments, and eventually crypto. And this is how I found myself in the wild west of what we used to call Web3 back in the day. Now we are fortunate to have regulatory frameworks. We have all the legal setup for companies. We have so many directions and guidelines. Back in the day, you could have only a wallet, a white paper, and a website, and you were raising in seven figures. So we were building and promoting projects in an industry that was completely new. There was no playbook for how to grow. There was no proven tactics that you could use in order to win. Everything that was built, it was built as a custom solution, which is what made life very interesting. So once you go into the agency world, you can feel like you're delivering the same service over and over again. But if you're in crypto, you actually feel like you're always in the entrepreneurial mode because you get to build alongside founders and you get to come up with very unique point-based solutions. And I think out of all the industries in the world, crypto is one of the only ones or one of the few that can actually give people this opportunity.
Wow, that is extremely cool. Yeah, I find the whole thing of having a decentralized financial system to put a lot of power back into the people. And Marina, how did you get started with AI consulting? Tell us a little bit more about how you got started in that company, how you created it.
So we have an amazing founder who I got to meet over 6 years ago. As far as talking about female empowerment goes or talking about strong women, she was definitely a great example for me. I came to work as a CEO for a couple of years, and then when the founder stepped out to focus on her other ventures, I took over as a CEO. We had a great structure because there were two women in leadership, essentially, something that, again, you don't get to see in crypto too often. While I think the industry overall is super inclusive, the percentage is still navigating toward being male dominated. So us as an agency, as a business, we were fully run by females at the top. The founder was also based in Lithuania, so we got to meet, and that was a very good connection.
Wow, that's
Amazing.
amazing.
Yeah, that's really great, Marina. And again, it's such a pleasure having you on because I think you'll got such a global perspective to a space that I think a lot of people are curious about, but don't know as much about. And one of the questions that came to mind, as we were preparing for this conversation, is and Ivy went through this, right? You've had a lot of different positions at different places. You've worked in institutions like NATO, European Commission, and beyond, and obviously now have been driving growth in Web3. As you think back, about your career, was there a strategic bet that you made at some point to go, left versus right or the other way around that you think kind of led you on this trajectory that you've had over the past several years? Anything that comes to mind where you decided, let me try this versus that, and that kind of led you to where you are today?
So I'm actually the person who really hates people who preach that there is one way to achieve success. If you go on LinkedIn, on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, wherever social media, we're forced to consume content that says 9 to 5 is bad for you. Or you have to be an entrepreneur, you have to climb the corporate ladder, you have to freelance, you have to. Realistically, you don't have to do anything. There are multiple ways to success. When I was in a startup, I was the only person building their whole marketing. And when I left, there were 330 people, and I had 10 people under me. The startup couldn't be called a startup anymore. It was more of a scale up going into a corporate. So the question that I had to ask myself, do I feel comfortable climbing up the corporate ladder? Do I want more of the structure, set processes, well-defined role where I can grow vertically, but I'm not going to be shaping my skills, I'm not going to be growing horizontally? Or I can go work with a new business, new not in a sense of age, because at the time the agency was around for like 5 years in the market, but more from perspective of still growing, figuring out where to pivot, scaling, onboarding new clients. You get to wear multiple hats. I say that when you're a CEO, you're not really an executive officer, you're more like a chief everything officer, when it's still a business that is going through such a hyper scaling phase. So that is the question that I had to ask myself. At the time, I felt much more comfortable going and growing the business, figuring things out from scratch, building the processes myself rather than being comfortable. Is this the path for everyone? Definitely no. There are great people who, for example, we've hired from very big businesses who have hundreds, thousands of employees, but they suffer in the agency structure. But once they go back into the corporate, they're delivering amazing results. And in the same way, you can put an agency operator in a corporate structure, and that agency operator will burn out or they will feel bored. So the question that the audience should be asking themselves is, what makes me tick? What makes me happy? If you like the pressure, if you like to juggle multiple things at the same time, if you like to have your days filled with a little bit of chaos, go into a smaller business, grow it, figure it out. If you like the structure, if you want to become an amazing specialist, but in a super narrow niche, go corporate. Or you don't want any of that and you just want to be a solopreneur. You can always be a solopreneur. Don't work with the team, work on your own. Figure out a way that makes you revenue without having to have other people around. There is no one set path for success, no matter how much you're being preached about it.
I think that's very good advice and very true, right? I think for everyone that's gone through different paths, the more paths you've kind of walked throughout your career and life, you kind of get different perspectives on things, and you understand very quickly, like you said, there's one truth that you see on LinkedIn or on social. This is the way. Everyone has their way. That's really not reality for most people. So I think that's great advice. And Marina, there's something you said that I think was interesting around as a CEO, right, being the chief everything officer. And as someone in the same position, and you go through that, especially as you're scaling a business, you're doing everything all the time, nonstop. So you get into that mode as a CEO, especially in a scaling type business versus an established one, right? But I'm kind of curious for you, how do you kind of decide when to lean into your expertise and your knowledge base versus when to kind of almost intentionally put yourself in rooms where you're learning, where you have experts around you that you can kind of take from instead, even within, you having the title that you have? And how do you balance that act between being the CEO and your expertise versus still learning, still putting yourself with people that, and know more than you at certain things that you can learn from?
What I've learned along the way is that the best CEOs are actually those who have the smallest egos. Your job is to be the most stupid one. If you feel like you are more smart than majority of your team, you have the wrong team. I am fortunate enough to have services in my agency delivered to clients with a level of excellence where I'm not an expert. In order for us to present them to the clients, I need to have my team, who are experts, come to the call and answer technical questions. And I think that this is the direction to which any founder should aim for, because the goal of the founder, the goal of the executive is to build the business and to scale it. You are not supposed to be an expert in every area. So if you're pretending to be an expert in finance, in product, in marketing, in sales, in everything, you're realistically an expert in nothing. So you have a choice. And again, there are multiple ways of how you reach it. You need to figure out a way that works for you. Option number one, you hire expensive consultants. You hire coaches, and you pay for two things. You pay for their knowledge, but you also pay for you to be motivated because you invested a lot of money. So you're going to wake up every day and you will actually go and do what the consultant is telling you to do. So you're forcing yourself to be motivated by putting down an expensive check. Option number two, you look for type A players who have the expertise that you do not, but then you need to swallow your ego and say, I do not know this. I am going to hire a person. I'm going to put them in a controlled environment where I trust them to experiment and to show and prove to me that they actually have the expertise. And if it doesn't work out, I accept this as a responsibility of an executive to replace them or to pivot to another strategy. But you need to let go of the micromanaging. If you know you don't know, then you have to trust someone else who you hired to do it for you. And option number three, if you do not have the budget or if you do not have the right personality to do option 1 and 2, then you learn it on your own and you upgrade your own skills. There are certain processes in the business where it's beneficial to learn the hard skill because it's going to serve you long term, or because that hard skill can be easily automated afterwards or be delegated to a junior, then it makes sense for you to learn. But if we're talking about a high value skill that is a mix of a process plus a competence that you need to master over time, then it only makes sense to delegate it, outsource it, and for an executive to act as an actual executive, a manager, not as a specialist who has to be putting down fires and doing everyday tasks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I love
great.
this, Marina. Your example of when you're hiring consultants and you're motivated because now you're paying the big bucks reminds me of when you hire a personal trainer and you're also paying them a lot of money. So you do get up in the morning to go to the gym because you're paying this person. And yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. I feel like delegating is a skill set that not a lot of people actually do have. And they're just scrambling out to around just to do everything themselves. Now, Marina, I'm wondering, as your role shifted from operator to CEO, what did you have to unlearn about leadership to grow into this next chapter?
When you're in operations, your whole job is to pay attention to details. And that comes very difficult for me to unlearn because I have this inborn ability to see typos, to see mistakes. You can give me a 15-page document, and on page 12, within 5 minutes, I will identify where the paragraph is missing. This is just how my brain works. So when I had to step up to be the CEO, the first thing was learning the vision. My job right now is not to manage the day-to-day, but to understand where are we going in the next couple of months. Where are we going in the next year? What are some high-level strategic opportunities we can leverage? Does our vertical that we serve make sense to us? Does it bring us revenue? A lot of people, when they're starting a small business, they have to be both in operations and in setting the strategy, setting the vision. Naturally, you will be more inclined toward one model because some people are very good strategic thinkers, but they're horrible executors. They cannot sit in front of a laptop, they cannot build a timeline and actually stick to it because it kills them. And some people are very good doers, but when you ask them what is the next big thing, they struggle to find a creative outlet. So again, you have a choice. If you're on your own, you have to train the part that you're missing. And our brain is an amazing organ because it is fully trainable. It's like a muscle. If you give it opportunities to grow, it will grow. But you need to treat it the same way how you treat your physical body when you're going to the gym. You have to give it the puzzles to solve. Or option number two, you bring in someone on board, a partner, a co-founder, a hired executive who has the skill that you do not, who gets to complement you.
I love that. I love that. And Marina, now let's shift the conversation to a hot topic, right? AI, right? So in an industry that is built on decentralization and automation, where do you see AI adding real strategic leverage, not just operational efficiency?
So we have lots of examples in crypto space where AI projects are built with blockchain as an underlying technology. There is a big problem for AI that is laying in the field of underutilized GPUs. And blockchain as a technology helps solve that. Because the costs that you need to dedicate for the compute power is extremely high. And when you build a project on top of blockchain, the costs get much lower. The problem in the industry happens when founders try to jump on the trend and then understand AI is hot, investors are allocating money towards it. Why don't I pretend that my project needs AI? I'm going to put it in a pitch deck. I'm going to create some superficial feature that doesn't really add much value. And I'm going to position my project as AI. This is where the problems start. You need to answer the question to yourself, do I really need AI? And does blockchain make sense for what I'm building? Or am I trying to utilize some buzzwords in order to gain capital, in order to gain attention?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point, right? Because I think at this point now, AI is kind of almost like a baseline for everyone. It's not the pitch anymore. You are kind of expected to have AI built into whether that's your product, your roadmap, your approach, your operations, which I think creates that leverage for some companies, but also then deleverages others where they're kind of putting attention on the wrong things just to, like you said, cash the investors or the funding or try to use those buzzwords and their approach. So I think that's a really interesting point. And it gets me also thinking, right, like, curious your perspective on this, Marina, because you look at AI, you look at regulation, where different countries and like the EU and different regions are looking to regulate AI, but then also on the other side of it, you see the blockchain side and the decentralization model. These three things kind of collide in a sense, right? Regulation, decentralization, AI coming in, with quantum coming up in the future. How do you see these things kind of play out, and what type of leaders do you think will succeed in this environment, and what type of leaders will kind of struggle in this environment that is shifting quite a bit? I think over the next few years will shift even more.
I think no matter how much conversation we have around decentralizing projects, actually we're making a full circle into centralization again, especially in my field where institutions have come in and they brought a lot of money. Retail founders got pushed to the side. This means that the founders who will actually be successful are those who actually had good Web2 exits in the past. So they come in as strong operators, they have an idea how to run a business, and they're not first-time wannabe entrepreneurs that went into crypto to make quick money. They actually have the foundation and they have the track record to succeed. Or it's going to be inventors, developers, those who figured out the innovation in AI, in crypto, and they find good co-founders for hire, or they hire good executives from the business perspective. I think that it will either belong to founders who've walked the walk before, who've succeeded, who can replicate the business processes, who can replicate the pitching, the fundraising, or those who have one in a million idea and they understand that just having an idea, just having a product is not enough, and they go after hiring the right experts to help them execute the strategy, to help them bring the distribution to the market. So one of the biggest mistakes we see, both in the old market and the new market that is shifting, is when founders overestimate the value of the product and underestimate the value of the distribution.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think one thing that a lot of founders and I think even executives at bigger companies often get wrong is you look back at all the big companies that have made it over the years and you think, well, they were the first with either X or Y or Z. Apple was the first with this or this company. But really, a lot of them, you can just go back and see others had the idea before them, but it's just about the execution piece. Who executed the best are typically the ones that win at the end of the day. So the execution part is such a critical piece here. And to that point, do you see any difference between how people think growth will happen in 2026 and the following years versus how you actually think it will happen, if that makes sense? So I think a lot of people have an idea, this is how we're going to grow this year, next year, but they might do that with an old school playbook or a different model. How do you see, where's that disconnect with when you go in as an agency, for example, and you speak about the marketing aspect and growth, and the founder or the executive says, hey, this is what we're thinking about. And you say, well, actually, this is the reality now moving forward. Is there a disconnect there that you've seen and that you can share?
That's a great question. I think it's a topic for a separate podcast in general. But actually, the biggest problems, the biggest disconnect is not related to trends. It's related to universal human psychology. So number one, founders underestimate the value of the people in the business. They do not understand what their actual role is. If you're a founder, if you're an executive, one of your part-time jobs is being a hiring agency. You constantly have to hunt for the right talent, and that right talent will actually help you stay on trend because it's going to be bringing you the latest knowledge. It's going to be bringing you the latest know-how. And founders think that they can hire a team and do not invest time into upskilling them, training them, or upgrading the team members in general. Second one is basically not paying enough attention to the macroeconomy. Many founders think if they're operating in a small business model, they can just keep doing whatever they were doing. But you need to adjust your own operations to where the world is, especially in crypto, where we depend on the major economic decisions that are happening around the world. We depend on global conflicts, we depend on wars, we depend on the superpowers' decisions. You have to adjust your strategy every single quarter, if not every month, depending on where the wind blows. But this same strategy also relates to small business owners, so those who are implementing AI as a part of their daily operations. Then we have the point about trying to replicate successes of other businesses by blindly applying them to you. I'm a great fan of competitors' research, don't get me wrong, we do it for every one of our clients. But there is a big difference between researching what your competitors or researching what other businesses are doing and then blindly trying to apply it to your own project. Usually that fails because people do not take into consideration a couple of aspects. Aspect number one, you cannot take a project outside of the year when it was being built because it was impacted by so many other external factors. You cannot pretend that you can take the learning from the e-commerce and perfectly implement the same learnings for a deep tech project. Even if a deep tech project succeeded, the second deep tech project that is similar to it will most likely not enter the same river twice. I think there is a big chunk of founders whose strategy sounds like we'll just see what our competitors are doing and we'll do the same but a little bit better. Usually that doesn't work. You can learn a lot by observing what the strongest players did, but you can learn even more by figuring out what they didn't do, identifying that lowest hanging fruit and trying it out in your business. From the
I love
trends
this.
yeah. From the trends perspective, again, you can talk for a very long time, but what we see right now in the overarching marketing sphere, the shift is actually going away from digital. I can't believe I have to say, but people do not trust influencers anymore because they know that even a promotion that is not marked as paid is probably paid. People do not trust the ads. People do not trust pretty much anything that is going on online. So you are faced with a dilemma, right? What do people like? People like good content. And it is your job how do you distribute this content so it reaches your audience. There are multiple ways how you go about it. You can create content that shocks, surprises people, makes them stop. And then the best way to distribute that content is actually in real life. So we see a big trend of IRL activations happening either through sponsorships with big sports events, a booth, some PR stunts that are happening in the center of the cities. The type of marketing that was popular back in 2010 is now coming back in 2026. Or you can have content that entertains, that makes you hooked to watch it in the same way how you watch a TV show. So this is where businesses are changing their TikTok accounts or Instagram accounts into literal TV show sets of series. They do not talk about their product at all. They do not talk about their value proposition. They do not follow the usual funnel of top of the funnel, you need to reach awareness, then you need to push people toward interest. It doesn't work anymore. They literally create content that is fun for people to observe, and maybe by video number 25, you will start asking yourself, who's that company that is doing the content that I like? What is that logo that I see on my screen for 25 days? Maybe I should go and check it out. So awareness is achieved not through parroting some slogans 25 times. Awareness is achieved through you subconsciously remembering the logo, the brand colors of the company, their name. And then once you're bored, before you go to sleep and you're doom scrolling, you will actually go Google and research them on your own. And that is a very powerful shift in the way we do marketing because it shifts the agency to the buyer and it gives them an intent to research, an intent to buy, gives them the responsibility and the desire in their hands versus having that agency in the hands of the seller where you're pushing the content out, you're pushing the advertisement, you're kind of forcing people to consider who you are. And I think from psychology perspective, it's a very interesting way to to acquire customers that are going to be loyal rather than to manipulate buyers that are going to purchase on an impulse.
Wow, I love this, Marina, and I'm so glad you jumped into basically the way that actually humans work and operate. And you said something about, essentially not trusting influencers anymore, right? And it kind of reminds me of, I've been hearing a lot about the analog renaissance, which is basically a deep desire to feel more deeply in a world that is moving so fast and that is optimized for speed and to scale. The more than that AI rises, there's going to be a deeper demand for in real life events. The hospitality is also, I was reading the other day an article that hospitality is going to go up as well. Marina, I'm kind of curious. At the beginning of the podcast, you mentioned something about this particular industry being still run mainly by or dominated by males, right? So I wanted to ask you, when it comes down to your own experience, what would you say was the shift where what that helped you step into your own personal power as a woman, so that way you could claim a seat on the table in a male dominated industry?
That's a good question. I think the whole point of female empowerment is not to create a story of male versus female, is not to make women focus on the glass ceiling. It's actually to empower women to understand that they have choices. And the choice that any woman who wants to achieve success needs to make is to become the biggest expert in the room. Not compared to a man and not compared to a woman, the biggest, best expert in the room, period. To focus on her own skills, to focus on winning on the basis of merit, not on the basis of victimizing herself, not on the basis of comparing herself. Will there be people who will try to put you down? Yes. Will there be people who will call you someone's assistant? Yes. Will there be people who ask you, where is your husband on a conference when you're literally speaking on the stage? Yes, there will be these people. But guess what? If you are the best at what you're doing, if you're known for your competencies, if you're known for not taking bad comments from anyone and from being able to stand your ground, it doesn't matter. So I think the best advice for women who want to change their career, who want to find confidence, who want to find their voice, is to understand that confidence is a skill. And the best gift that you can give to yourself is to filter out all the noise. Let people talk. Let people question you. Let people underestimate you as a woman, as a professional, because guess what? If someone underestimates you, you can only go up from there. Let gender inequality play on your benefit.
I love this. I love this. And the same question for anybody who is a woman that wants to really get into blockchain, into Web3, all of this. What would you be your best career advice on where to start?
Figure out what you're good at naturally. Many people transitioned into Web3 world from tech, and that was actually a pretty natural shift for them. If you're an amazing marketeer, like I was in tech, and you want to do marketing, there are so many positions in marketing in Web3. God knows we need those good marketeers. As someone who is trying to hire a marketing manager for the past 6 months, if you're a good marketeer, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I will gladly hire you. If you're trying to make that shift as a man, as a woman, please reach out to me. But realistically, going back to our conversation, figure out what you are good at or where you want to grow. Our industry is extremely responsive to mentorship as well. I was so grateful and so lucky to have my founder as a mentor for many years. And I learned so much from her. I know that she mentored other people around. I was also fortunate to give back to those who came after me. Identify people who have your dream position. 10, 20, 30, reach out to them on LinkedIn, invite them for a coffee. Majority of people who you admire are actually very down to earth. They are super open to giving advice and to helping you figure out the next step. Or alternatively, if you don't want to go that route, you can also just start building your network, go to conferences, not as a speaker first, just to meet people and make sure that you are focused on being intentional with building the relationship. Do not ask for anything back. Do not be transactional. Do not squeeze people for favors. Just build the relationship first. Ask what type of favor you can do for them. And once you've established a human connection, you can then ask them for a favor to you. Because a good reference goes a very long way. Some of the best players we've hired for the agency came from the network. You trust them more, they come with certain credit, and that definitely plays out in your favor.
Yeah, definitely see
So
that.
good.
Yeah, and also I feel like those people come in with certain credit, but also with a certain kind of pressure on themselves because someone recommended them, and they feel like, okay, someone put their name on my name, and I need to now deliver. So it's kind of a double benefit from the network people that come in. And we're going to go into our closing round here with some questions. But before that, I was kind of sitting here thinking, I'm sure you will have people in the audience that listen that have gone through this entire episode up to this point, super excited, understanding all the different perspectives that we've gone through. But I think some of them will still have one question that I think it was good if you can answer for them. What is Web3 compared to Web2? I think a lot of people will ask that question. We know it, but I think some people will actually not really know it still. You've been around for a long time. So, Marina, as an expert, give us the layman's explanation for everyone that's listening. What is the difference?
That's a very good question. I should have led with that.
All of us should, but it's popped to my mind. Like, hey, obviously that question is boiling around some people's minds here. So let's make sure it's answered before we leave.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, Web 2 is your regular internet. If you're thinking about any search browser, if you're thinking about Safari, Chrome, if you want to go somewhere on Google, Web 2 is the stage in our technology that is characterized by centralized servers where all of the information is held by the powerful few. You can think that the data that we have is going to big corporations like Google, Meta. In Web 2, we are relying a lot on user-generated content. It's the type of exchange of communication that is very much based on consumption. You can read, you can write, you can interact, but you do not have any sort of ownership of that data. You do not have any sort of ownership of that exchange because who owns the data? The big corporations. And then came blockchain, who said, this is not the way we should go about it. We should add another layer of ownership to the model. In Web3, we are utilizing blockchain to essentially give users ownership of their data and of their assets back. If in Web2 we have centralized servers, in Web3 we have peer-to-peer networks that are used to validate the information in the exchange. We're very, very far away from Web3 reaching mass adoption, mainly because the user experience is far from exemplary still. So majority of those who came into crypto 10 years ago, 15 years ago, are still pretty much hooked on the centralized information as well. But Web3 is the model where we're going to step away from the centralization of data and we're going to rely more on the peer-to-peer.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Clear. Understood.
Yeah, I think the audience will understand that clearly. And it's very exciting, I think, as an idea, as a model, and the peer-to-peer, meaning everyone's computers basically are connected to each other and validating information versus Google and Meta, Facebook, these companies owning everything. It brings power back, like you said, from a certain ownership perspective to people. So that's super exciting. Amazing, Marina. So we've gone through, I think, an amazing conversation here. And what we'd love to do at the end of these is do a quick section, which is rapid fire questions, quick answers. So yeah, if you feel ready for that, we have our questions ready to go and ready to jump in if you are.
Always.
All right, excellent. So first one, we'll start semi-easy. The biggest opportunity with AI right now is?
To automate stupid manual labor that you're annoyed with on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, definitely. That's a big benefit.
Yes.
The biggest risk with AI right now is?
To lose your ability to think creatively and critically, and to try to outsource strategic thinking tasks to a model that gives copy-pasted responses to everyone.
Yeah, great. And next up, let's imagine we're in a time machine. We travel 12 months into the future and you look back at your year, the past 12 months at that point. What would you like the headline to be from this year?
The year of biggest growth and strategic opportunities that we've had in the past decade.
Love that. Marina, and what's one thing you're grateful for right now?
Extremely grateful to have so many amazing, smart, successful people around me. And I'm grateful to be a stupid person in the room from time to time.
Of that. And what's one word you want this year to be about?
Spark. I want everyone who's watching us to find their spark, their passion, the thing that makes them happy to wake up every day, regardless of what day of the week it is, and to pursue that passion.
Wow.
Amazing.
Solid answers. I'm motivated. I'm motivated already.
Yeah.
Marina, this has been an incredible conversation. I knew you were going to bring in a lot of power when I saw your background, but I gotta tell you, I have a lot of resonance with every answer that you gave us. I've learned so much, and I know that the audience also has learned a lot. We will make sure we link your LinkedIn. So for anybody that is listening, if you want to get in touch with Marina, you'll find her LinkedIn profile attached to the description of this podcast. Marina, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Marina.
Thank you for having me. I've had an incredible conversation today.
It's been our pleasure. Thank you so much.
We want to thank our sponsors for supporting the Sussex Revenue Podcast. RevSetter is the #1 customer success and management platform in the Middle East region, offering global capabilities mixed with regional solutions that helps your CS, account management, and go-to-market teams 10x efficiency, improve customer experience, and turbocharge customer retention rates.
And thank you to Medlify, a leading marketplace for workers and employers in the healthcare space. Needs and demands meet, create benefits for both sides. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.